Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It is great to be back on PowerTube TV. This show, as always, being brought to you by TrackTune, and you'll hear more and see more from TrackTune as we go forward. We've got a very special guest this week. This is a gentleman that I have kind of admired from afar for the work that he's done, and in a number of different ways. Pastor Will Marotti is our guest. And his passion for racing dates back to his childhood when his father took he and his brother to a local midget track. As a 10-year-old boy, Marotti listened to the Indy 500 on the radio, didn't we all? And made his first in-person trip to the track in 1982. He is also the lead pastor of New Life Church in Wallingford, Connecticut, which he co-founded with his wife, Ann, in 1999. And he's the author of the Spirit of Speedway children's book. We're going to learn more about all of those things as we go, but I want to start right away. Let's dive into the racing part, because I'd like for you to start by giving us more detail about your early days with your dad going to the races and all of that. Just tell us how you really got interested and walk us through some of the earlier days.
Yeah, Tom, let me just say, I've been following you on social media for quite a long time, so this is really an honor.
Oh, well, thank you.
To be with you.
Same here
on your show. It's I've been jazzed up about this for days, so I'm really, really thankful. I was about 7 or 8 years old. My brother, a couple of years younger than I, when my dad grew up in the 50s, so it was all about 55 Chevys and leather jackets and slick back hair, happy days kind of thing.
Yep, the funds.
And so Dad was always interested in cars, not so much racing per se, more drag, but he, I don't know what got into him, but he took my brother and I to this quarter midget track, Silver City midget track in South Meriden, Connecticut. Yep. The same track that Joey Logano cut his teeth on as he was breaking into as a kid. And I was hooked the first day. I mean, I just saw these little cars whipping around the track, and sometimes they'd flip over and sometimes they'd spin out. And I mean, I was all in. And but my mom and dad growing up were very, kind of blue collar. We didn't have a lot of extra money, so they weren't really able to fund us and get us started in racing. So we just went a lot and went to the races. And then I think the year after that, my dad took us to Lime Rock Park for a Trans Am race.
Nice.
And it was unbelievable because the people that were there, who knew, like, names that I never even heard of before. Mark Donahue, Peter Revson, George Fulmer.
Oh, boy.
I'm not sure if Parnelli raced that year in that race or not, but I mean, it was classic muscle car, Trans Am, Camaros, Mustangs. I think Peter Revson won the race that year.
Okay.
And so, again, that made it even worse. Now I like racing even more. And then it was a Memorial Day weekend, but I don't think it was a Sunday. I think it was a Friday, a Memorial Day weekend. My dad was either working on his car, 66 Bel Air Chevrolet. He was either working on his car in the driveway or working on the air, doing something. But we had the big honking Radio Shack multi-band radio outside, right? And I'm flipping through trying to find something. I'm on the AM band because that's the station that played the Red Sox game, still does, all these years later, play Red Sox game. And I land on something. I go, this is interesting. And I'm listening, and it sounds like car engines. It sounds like, something motor, and people are talking behind it. And, it dawned on me, this is a race. This is a car race. And so I'm listening to it, and, who knew Sid Collins was the voice of the greatest spectacle in racing, and son of a gun, this guy wins the race, and his last name is like mine, Andretti, Marotti. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm sold. So it was off to the races at that point, Tom, and madly in love with racing, Indy 500 in particular. I would get a subscription to the local newspaper and mail it to my house 5 days later so I could keep up on what was happening. Of course, you remember back in those days, the whole month of May, they opened the track May 1st, May 2nd, and the whole month of May was racing.
Oh, yeah.
And, and no TV, just, you'd get a broadcast once in a while, and you don't have to count on a 5-day-old newspaper to be able to keep track.
Yeah.
Of it. So, long story short, I got out of school. I went to a driver's school, went to Skip Barber.
Oh, nice.
And, wanted to race cars, did pretty well, but, I was a kid. I didn't understand sponsorship, didn't understand any of that stuff. So I raced for a couple of years until I ran out of money. And then finally in 1982, I went to my first Indianapolis 500. And what a 500 to break in.
Oh, boy, that was the year that...
10-lap shootout at the end. Mears and John Cock. 250,000 people on their feet, screaming, going wild. And John Cock wins at the end. And, so that, again, that just made it worse for me. Now I want to do it more. I want to be part of it more, but it was frustrating because, we just never had the money to do it. It was hard.
Yeah.
So,
let me add something to that 82 because I have a cool perspective on that one because Gordy Johncock in the 60s started in what was called Eagle Class cars or super modifieds. And my home track was the Oswego Speedway, which had just converted over to a full-time weekly super modified track. So Gordy was part of the Michigan invasion, the Midwest invasion in those years. So he kind of went through that for a number of years in the 60s and went to Indy. Well, back in those days, as you say, it was on radio live, but it wasn't yet televised live on TV. It was on, I think, ABC at like 8 or 9 o'clock. Well, Oswego would have their big Port City race that day on Sunday, supers and modifieds, and that race, they would play on the radio, the Indy 500 between races. So they had it on and it came down to the last like 10, 15 laps and they held the start of the super modified big race so that we could hear the finish because Gordy was racing for the win. And when he beat Mears out and they announced that, the whole crowd gave him a standing ovation. It was great. Yeah. It was like one of our people had gone and won the Indy 500. So that gives you just an idea of the perspective of how big that race is. And I'll never forget that. That was one I was just probably 14, 15 years old, and it was cool. Sure. That was a cool moment to be a part of because it was just like we were sitting there watching it,
Yeah.
And we all applauded, and that was really, really cool. So what a way to start your Indy 500. My first and only one was 89, and I think it was the year that Al Unser Jr. and Fittipaldi got into the wreck, the teammates. Yeah. And I think Fittipaldi won that. Yeah. So,
I always liked John Cock because I felt bad for him. In 73, probably one of the worst years ever.
Yeah.
First lap accident, Salt Walther pinwheeling down the front straight, gas, fire spewing everywhere. Of course, that race, rain shortened, was actually finished on Wednesday. So Savage got killed.
Yeah.
One of his crewmen, Armando Terran, was killed trying to run to the scene. And I always felt like Gordy got kind of cheated a little bit.
Yeah.
It was a horrible time. You couldn't be happy about it because of the Savage accident. And so I was so happy for Gordy in 82 because I felt like he finally got his proper win at Indy, and I just love Gordy a lot. So it was wonderful to see that. But so I mean that was the beginning days of it, and at that point I had I'd almost given up the driving idea by 82. Fast forward a few years, pretty much gave it up completely. And just was a super fan. I love going to races. We've got here in Connecticut. Well, oh my gosh, we've got Thompson, we've got Stafford Springs, Waterford. We had they had for a while before they built Six Flags. They built Riverside Park. Had a figure eight track,
Massachusetts.
So that was wild. All the modified stuff, and I fell in love with that. But things take a different turn. And so along the way, I got married and became a pastor and pastored out for 32 years. And God's been really good to us. He's blessed us. We used to televise the 500 on Sunday in church. We put on the big screen.
Oh, wow.
And, but in 2015, I got this idea and I said to my wife, if I'm ever going to do anything in racing, this is a time because next year, the 2016 is the 100th running of the 500. And if there's ever going to be a good commercial opportunity with sponsors, I think that's going to be it. And so I asked a bunch of friends, and the opinions ranged from "why not you" to "you're out of your mind." So I landed on the "why not you" side.
Of course.
I remember I called the track. I called the track in 2015. And I spoke to someone. I'm not going to say his name. I love him. He's a good friend now. But I spoke to somebody, and I told him what I wanted to do. And he said, "Well, let me just tell you this. 1,000 guys a year like you call us, and nothing ever happens. You have no idea how hard this is to go from virtually no professional motorsports experience to try to get in the Indy 500. It's impossible." And it was hard. I mean, it was hard. Don't get me wrong. It was a lot of work. And as it turned out, the best we could do was we were able to get sponsors. The best we could do was to team up with Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports.
Okay.
And they wanted to run a third car, didn't have all the funding. We brought, I think, the bulk of the funding. I never really found out how much it was. But they had, Lucas Oil was helping them. So Lucas was on the car, and a couple other companies. And so we had enough to be co-entrants. So the entry was the Schmidt-Peterson with Marotti Autosport car. Oriel Survey was the driver. And, honestly, Tom, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. It was the most remarkable thing, getting on the inside of that in the timing stand for the whole race, better or for worse, as it turned out. But it was great. Oriel qualified 10th, did a great job, and stayed up in the whole race. And with a few laps to go, we were running 4th place. But we were had the same fuel problem the other leaders had, including Alexander Rossi. And then the debate was, well, do we bring him in for a splash and go? Do we change tire? What does he need? It's only 4 laps left. What are you going to do, right? And so we lost communication. All race communication is fine. We lost communication. We couldn't talk to Oriel. We didn't know.
Wow.
So the crew chief made the decision. I mean, if they'd listened to me, I wanted to leave him out there. I wanted to leave him out and say, listen, let's roll the dice. Maybe your calculations off. Maybe we're not going to run out on lap 198.
Sure.
And look what happened. Rossi ran out on lap 200 and coasted across the line with no engine power. But we brought him in, and we really messed up the pit stop, and we ended up, instead of finishing 4th, we finished 12th.
Okay.
But it was an exciting time. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you. I'm thinking about it now. It was so to be there and be part of it. To have our name as part of the official entry, like I said, no matter whatever happens, nobody could take this away from our family. Our family we're in the race. The car's named that. We had a funny thing about Sam. Like Sam Schmidt is a great guy, but he's a tough business guy. And Sam, he'll do exactly what he says he's going to do, but he won't give you anything more than that.
Okay.
And so, we had a contract, and I put the basic things. I didn't know first time. I would ask for a lot more if I had to do it over again. No, I would have asked for a lot more. I think I left a lot of money on the table, which Sam was happy about. But it was I think the day before qualifying, and my partner here in Connecticut, Jim Abley, was out there with me, and Jim said, "Have you looked at the pit wall?" I said, "No, not recently." He goes, "You better go look at it." And so I hopped over the pit wall. Our pit box was right, I think, just south of the yard of bricks. That's where our pit box was. And I jump around the pit wall, and I look, and son of a gun, the pit wall's got car 77, Servia, and Sam, rather than putting Schmidt-Peterson, he abbreviates and put SPM/ and he spelled out our last name, Marotti. When I saw my family name on the pit wall at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I cried like a baby.
I bet you did.
I was so proud. And my dad was coming out, and Mom had already gone to heaven, which I wish she had been there for it. But it was probably one of the most proudest moments of my life.
I bet it was.
That our family name was on the pit wall at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
And we'll step aside for a moment. We'll pick it up right there when we come back with more of the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV. Stay with us.
Attention track and series owners. Elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join Tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV. This segment brought to you by Ultimate QM. If your son or daughter would like to get into motorsports, quarter midget racing is a great way to do it. Offers local, regional, and national racing of a variety of different types, and Ultimate QMs right now are the hottest car and quarter midget racing. They are manufactured by a family-owned business right here in Mooresville, North Carolina, and lots of winners around the country on a weekly basis with the Ultimate QM chassis. As you can see, some of them on the screen. And of course, they had several winners at the most recent big national event at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So Ultimate QM, winners win with Ultimate QM. And we've got a winner on the show with us tonight. We've been talking with Pastor Will Marotti, and the end of the last segment, we were talking just before the break about how you saw your family name on the pit wall at Indianapolis before the 2016 500 when you were teamed with Schmidt-Peterson to race Oral Servia. I just, from being at the 500 once myself, the pre-race at Indy just has to be the most electrifying experience in all of motorsport. There's a reason they call it the greatest spectacle in racing, and I can only imagine what that was like as a car owner. I've always said if I could get a driver to the Indy 500 and then be on the grid when they played back home again in Indiana and the Lord called me home, I die happy right there. That's it. I can't imagine a higher summit than that. And, talk a little bit about what that was like for you as a car owner to experience that.
No, it was funny. I had been to so many 500s prior to that, and experiencing opening ceremonies and back home and again in Indiana, and, flyovers and balloons. But that morning was extremely confusing. There was a lot going on. As you can imagine, back then, everybody was on the grid, it seemed like, before the start of the race. I had my family there. I had friends there. We had clients there. I'm trying to make sure everybody's set and know where they're going before the race starts. I tried the best I could to spend time with my wife, my daughter, my son, because, they'd never experienced that before. It was a madhouse. It's craziness to have at the start of the 500. So I have to say, as far as the race itself, the pre-race and the race itself, it wasn't really a lot of fun for me.
Really?
Because I was so caught up in all the stuff that, had to be done. It was like a blink of an eye, and it was over. I see checkered flags being waved in Rossi's car. I'm like, when did the race start? It was so crazy. But it was a wonderful experience, and one that I have I've had a chance to enjoy a couple of other times. It's fabulous, but it was. I will tell you, it's more fun to sit in the stands and watch the race than it is to be an entry.
Well, you make a good point. I mean, at first I was confused by you saying that, but then after you explained it, it's a different perspective when you're working. You don't get to watch the race and focus on the awesomeness of the race itself when you're focusing on a car, you're trying to do things. Even, me as a media in the media center, you're trying to take notes or you're doing whatever, but you're not, it's not the same as just being a fan in the grandstand. And that's an interesting perspective, but nonetheless, a lifetime experience that I have to believe, even with the sort of limitations of having to work, is certainly repeatable, right?
I'm never trading it back, Tom.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, and it was even more difficult. As this will sound funny, we came back in 2017 with Sam Schmidt Peterson again, and we had a sponsor,
Okay.
and it was a 4-race deal, including Indy, and so now not only I didn't have as many friends and family there, but I had sponsor people there. So I'm going back and forth. I want to be in the pits. I want to be in the pit lane while the race is going on, but I got to go up to the suite to help take care of the sponsor.
Sure.
And so my whole race was up and down and up and down. It was traumatic. It really
You got
was.
your steps in, as they would say now.
Brian Herta told me, Brian Herta is a good friend. Brian Herta told me years and years ago, he says, well, you're going to do about 80 to 90% of stuff you don't want to do so that you can get to do the 10 to 20% of what
Right.
you love. And it's so true. You don't really know what to expect until you do it. And I'll tell you, it's a tough sport. It's a tough sport to break in. It's a tough sport to stay in. We ran 16, we ran 17. Mikhail Aloshin, the Mad Russian, was with us.
Okay.
And he stayed top 10.
He did,
whole
yeah,
race
I
with
about
about 50 laps left. And Ed Carpenter came down on him and put a hole in the side pod. We tried to tape it up with duct tape, and it blew the aerodynamics of the car. But I thought it was easier than it is, and because of 16 and coming back in 17, I just felt like, well, we'll do this every year. No. We lost out on 18. We lost out on 19. We got a great sponsor in 2020, and then COVID hit. And it was a 4-race deal again. It was all hospitality.
Oh, wow.
They wanted to entertain clients. Great company, fabulous company. And, we had to pull a plug. St. Pete was the first race. I had to pull a plug. I had to call them and say, hey, we're not going. They just canceled the race. And, of course, they moved 2020 to August that year in the 500. And they only allowed 2,400 people to go. We only had 2 passes, and my partner said, you need to take the CEO of the company. And so I called him. He's become a good friend since then. I called him. He said, yeah, I'm going to go. So the CEO and myself and 2,398 of our closest friends got to be at the 500 in what was the most heartbreaking 500. Maybe what was it, 64 when they had the big crash and
Eddie Sachs.
Sachs was killed and Rich McDonald was killed. But I mean, to be in this massive racing facility, 250,000 fixed seats in the pagoda, and as far as you can see, all the way down to the 4th corner, all the way up to the 4th, not a soul in the stands.
Yep.
And it was one of the hardest things I'd ever experienced because, the fans make the race. It's the energy of the fans. It's craziest thing, right? You go there and they ask you to stand, remove your cap, and have a moment of silence. They're going to play taps, and 350,000 people. It's a frightening hush that just sweeps over the facility.
Yeah.
And you've never heard quiet like that when you're surrounded by, what is, and by all means, a medium-sized city, 350,000 people. There's nothing like it in Raw. I've been to Daytona. I've been to F1 races. I've been all over. Nothing still to this day lives up to the Indianapolis 500.
No.
I don't think ever will.
And the interesting part about that year is, you mentioned the hush that happens as the result of being asked for, right? The moment of silence and taps. I have to believe if you're standing there, taps plays, and not only is there, because there is a hush because there's nobody in the grandstand, but the echo, I would think, would be almost haunting in and of itself, just echoing off of the roof and whatever else, right? It's just, that had to be just, and the same with, most racing, NASCAR, whatever, for a while, no fans. And I just can't imagine what that was like. I never went to any of that. And the races that I did go to locally and regionally, we were able to have fans, so it wasn't quite as bad, but Man, that had to be amazing. But you were with that year, Santino Ferrucci was driving for Vassar Sullivan, and you were a part of that. Santino, honestly, is one of my favorite racers now, if I'm allowed to have one as an unbiased media. And I say that because he's just such an exciting personality. You can love him or hate him,
really
but
is.
Santino is an amazing young racer, and I think him and AJ Foyt make the perfect pair.
Yeah, they're both fiery.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Santino well. He's from Connecticut, born and raised here like I am. I had Santino on my program, my radio program, a number of times. We did an event together, a sponsorship event together in 2019, and then we came back with the sponsor in 2020. Boy, I'll tell you one thing about the 2020 race.
Go ahead.
We got more alone time with Vassar Sullivan, with Dale Coyne, with Santino, because there was nobody there. It was the sponsor and us, right? And it was, I mean, like, and I said to my friend, I said, listen. I invited him to come back. He brought his son-in-law back. Let's see, and probably in 2023 he came back with his son-in-law. I said, "Listen, you're not going to have the same experience this time. No one's going to be waiting on you. It's not going to be the same thing because now there's 350,000 people here." But it was the most wonderful experience for him.
Sure.
And he is an engineer by trade. He works in the world of jet engine propulsion, and course, and everybody was there to answer his questions. He was like a little kid in a candy store with the high tech of IndyCar. He's like, "Oh my God!" And I got him up in the timing stand for a lot of the race. I mean, it was just, it could have been a better environment for a sponsor to ever
I can
be
imagine,
in. And I actually enjoyed it, but I think once the race got going, Tom, it was enjoyable.
Sure,
it really was. And then for Santino started 19th and he finished 4th. That was
a great drive for sure. Yep. And again, just to put sort of a punctuation on that, you say that it was great for the sponsor in a sort of obviously an unfortunate sort of circumstance, but that's exactly the kind of thing that the sponsors love, right? Is that attention that they get when they're there and the ability to sort of shadow and watch and learn and get a peek behind the scenes. And it was just so much easier that year because there was nobody else sort of, asking for attention pretty much, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we spent 45 minutes with Dale Coyne. I mean, just talking, and then Jimmy Vassar and Sully Sullivan, same thing. Spent a lot of time. In fact, Santino. So this was a hospitality deal. They wanted to bring clients. It was a 4-race deal. Well, they couldn't bring any clients. So we put a team together. We were working with Wasserman Sports, Team Wasserman Sports Management. And we put a team together, and Santino spent the whole day Saturday before the race filming a video for us that this company could then take and release to their affiliates all over the globe.
Crazy.
And there was I think a 5-minute version and a 1-minute version. And he's a natural. Santino could be an actor in Hollywood. He's a natural. And I'm telling you, he did such a great job. IMS helped us with production. I mean, because I was afraid. The first thing I was afraid of was they're going to call and say, "Can you send the check back?" Because they had paid up front.
Sure.
And we couldn't produce. We couldn't honor the contract, right? But they were wonderful. They never did that. We ended up doing 3 races with them that year. We did Indy, we did Mid-Ohio, and then they closed out the year that year at St. Pete. And so they were able to bring clients. I put them all in 2-seaters, and it was a wonderful experience. But it was a tough year.
Oh yeah,
it was
for
a tough
sure.
year.
And with that, we're going to step aside one more time. We'll be back with Will Marotti as the Tom Baker Show continues on PowerTube TV.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point. either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV, powered by Track Tune. We've got Will Marotti with us still. We've been talking IndyCar racing, which is one of my favorite things to do. And Will has been a part of a couple of Indy 500s as a sort of partial team owner, if you will, or a partner in a team operation. But you've also had some opportunities for Marotti Autosport to compete in two other series that I love, the USF 2000 series, which is part of the Road to Indy ladder, and then the USAC National Midget Series as kind of a partnership with Abacus Racing. Talk a little bit first about USF 2000.
Yeah, we again, Brian Herta said to me, we kept trying. This is so hard to get into IndyCar and stay. And Brian says, "Why don't you go try the ladder series first? Try to work." So I said, "All right, fine." So we're gonna do ladder series, and we found a young driver from Atlanta. His name is Simon Sykes.
Oh yeah.
And Simon, I just fell in love with Simon. We also had another driver we're working with, Andre Castro. He just drove in the Chicago Xfinity race.
Sure did.
So we've run both of those guys at different times, but we debuted Simon. His USF 2000 debut was 2022 or 21 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Okay.
So we debuted Simon. Andre had already driven a couple of USF 2000 races. We actually drove them to both St. Pete one year, and we were trying to put a deal together with a sponsor, but the sponsor, for whatever reason, backed out, and we weren't able to finish the season with those guys, and I felt really bad about it. But Simon and Simon and I've stayed in contact with both Andre and Simon. They love their families, their dads. So we're working right. Of course, Simon went on to win the USF 2000 championship last year. He's in 2000 Pro this year. He really wants to move ahead, and I really think he should just go right into Indy next. The former Lights program, in my opinion. And so we're actually trying to put something together right now to be able to get Simon into the Lights program for next season. No matter what he does in pro, just move him advance him right up into Indy next. So that's and that was great. It was a wonderful time. I enjoyed it. I wish it would have gone better. I wish the sponsor would have stayed with us, but it was just, it's tough with sponsors sometimes. But I think we did a total of 5 or 6 USF 2000 races with Simon and Andre, and it was great. It was a lot of fun. We had a cool car. We had a company called MetaShare as the primary sponsor. And the car was beautiful. I mean, it was a showstopper. Everybody, our graphics guy, Ben Porter, who is also has Redline Ace, is a graphics guy. He does a lot of work for different teams. He works for Ray Hall, does some NASCAR stuff. Ben Porter put a livery together that was a showstopper. And it was a MetaShare car with a pharmacy company we were also working with. It was just a great car.
That's awesome.
Everything. So it was good. It was fun. But the midget, I've always loved midgets because that's what I first saw as a kid, right? And they were at quarter midgets, what I first saw. But our good friend who owns Abacus Racing, Brent Cox, called me a couple of years ago. He said, "Hey," he said, "how'd you like to?" We started this team called the Spirit of Speedway. We hope this year to get the Spirit of Speedway on the grid because there's never been a car named for the community that is the home of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Speedway, Indiana. And so we really want to get a car this year, this next coming year, on the grid and complete that chapter. But Brent said, why don't you have you ever been to Chili Bowl? I said, I love the Chili Bowl. He goes, well, why don't you sponsor us in Chili Bowl? We'll put Spirit of Speedway in Chili Bowl. And so we talked to the partners. We said, yeah, let's do it. And Daniel Whitley was the driver from California.
Okay.
And oh my gosh, I felt like an expecting father waiting to have a kid. I mean, it was so exciting.
It is.
And Daniel did he was driving through the field in the B main when he flipped the car over, it burst into flames. This kid climbs out from under the car on fire. And he talks about his henchman driver suit. Look at this suit, not even a spot on it from the flame. The greatest salesman I've ever seen in my life. And we ended up doing that full season with the car with midgets, USAC midget, a national championship tour with the Spirit of Speedway, and it was really cool, awesome. A lot of fun. And tremendous thanks to Abacus and Brent Cox for giving us the opportunity to do that.
Okay, so I'll ask you this, and then we'll move on and talk about some of the other sort of parts of what makes Pastor Will. But racing-wise, what is on your agenda? Are you looking to get back into the 500 this year, or this next year, 25, or what are your thoughts?
I think everybody who understands IndyCar understands that the window for new teams and new entries is closing. Without the third engine manufacturer yet, and now with the Prima coming in, bringing 2 entries, talking about could have 29 cars on a grid for a regular race. Some of the tracks can't even handle the pit stall capacity for that. I firmly believe this is our last shot. I think there's one more spot to be had. I think there's one more engine to be had, and so we're currently trying to put together a 3-year deal, single car, technical alliance with an existing team.
Okay.
With another accomplished person in IndyCar. I can't say his name. If I did, you know exactly who it is.
Yep.
And using our funding, our partners, sponsors, and try to get that car in for a full season in 25, 26, 27, 25, 26, 27. And that's what we're trying to do right now.
Okay.
And I think there's one spot left. And I want it so badly to be us, Tom. Because after this, I don't know what options there are. Maybe, Indy next or something.
Yeah.
But, and again, I don't say that, disparagingly, but that's not my goal. My goal is Indy. That's what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
And, it's getting harder to get sponsors to do one-offs. It's hard to get just a 500 sponsor. They're looking for the whole season. And this year, with the great TV deal that IndyCar just signed with Fox Sports, all the races next year, live TV network. That's a huge selling.
It is huge. Yeah, I agree.
So that's what we're working on right now. I just had a great meeting with a potential sponsor today.
Good.
We've got several more lined up, and folks that we've talked to in the past. So we're moving rapidly right now to try to get something put together. I'm hoping by mid-October.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, we look forward to that. We'll pray for success for you. Let's talk about your book. You've written a book, and I want to hear about the book.
So, I've always, because I fell in love with IndyCar when I was a kid, and we know that we're losing that younger generation, that 18 to 35-year-old fans, they're not as there as well. Now, what's great about it is we're bringing so many young drivers in, the Christian Rasmussen, David Malukas, Pato Award, all these young drivers. It's really getting a lot of enthusiasm, and that's wonderful. But I want to get kids when they're little. I want to get them at 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yep.
So I had this idea because of the Spirit of Speed. I said, let's write a book. Let's have a book. And very much remember that movie that came out years ago called Cars?
Yeah,
where all the cars had personality. Yeah. It's that same thing, right?
Okay.
So I came up with the idea, the character, the storyline, didn't have time to write it, and I called a really good friend of mine who lives in your part of the world, by the way.
Okay.
His name is Mark Dill.
Yes.
Mark is an accomplished author. He was the communications director at Indianapolis for 3 or 4 years. And I said, Mark, listen, I've got this children's book in my head, in my heart. Could you write it for us? And he said, yes. We found this great illustrator. And so here it is, The Spirit of Speedway.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Mark Dill was the writer.
Okay.
Marilyn Smith is a wonderful young woman, wonderful illustrator, and it's my creation. It's my storyline and stuff. But I want to give Mark all the credit for writing it. And it's a great book because it's written at a 3rd grade level, and it's all about Speedway, the little car Speedway, who was born in Speedway, Indiana. Always had dreams of winning the big race, right? But people discouraged them and said, oh, you'll never do it. You'll never make it. We've filled the book with, did you know, fast facts about the 500, Indianapolis. So this is it's a story, but it's an education tool.
Oh, that's cool.
It's written at a 3rd grade level.
Wow.
I'm so proud of it because one of our investors works with the United Way of Indiana,
Okay.
on a mentorship program they have called Read Up. And we were able to partner with them, and they got 346 of these books in Indianapolis public schools, using the book as a reading tool to help third graders better capture the reading skill.
That's
I
awesome.
couldn't be happier with it. I'm so proud of it.
That's awesome.
And,
Praise the Lord
yeah,
for that.
it's a great book.
That's
it's
great.
available on Amazon, and it's just wonderful. The illustrations are great, and I won't tell you the whole story, but I will tell you Speedway makes the race. I won't tell you what happens after that. But and the whole purpose of it was, for me originally, Tom, I wanted to do something to help a younger generation fall in love with what we love so dearly.
Yes, sir.
Which is IndyCar racing and Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I never thought it would be used in an educational way, that way, in a formalized mentorship program. So I'm even more proud. I'm so thankful to Mark Dill, and Mary Lynn Smith. I always want to give them credit for it. I had the idea; they did all the work. And so that's a real joy for us.
That's awesome. Okay, we got just about 2.5 minutes left or so. Talk about your radio show a little bit, and then talk about the church.
Yeah, so 2010, a former governor of Connecticut, who's a friend of mine, called me and said, "Hey, I just got a call from this is a legacy station, WTIC News Talk 1080 Hartford, 100 years old."
Wow.
50,000 watt regional channel. He said, they just called me to do a radio show. And I said, I won't do it without my pastor. And so I got drafted in. And as it turned out, for the last 4 years, I've had my own show, the Will Marotti Show. And I run a lot of things at the same time. I keep a lot of plates spinning. It just was time to step back, wanted to do something on my own. So I left the radio show, and I have started an internet kind of platform with the Will Marotti Show, and it's culture, it's politics. I want to sneak some racing in there, and it's on Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern time. You can get it on YouTube, X, Facebook, and then we take the audio and put it up on Spotify and Apple, so you can listen to it as a podcast. And we just had our month anniversary yesterday. I'm so excited about it.
That's awesome.
And we hope it does well.
That is cool. Well, and talk about the church, New Life Church.
Yeah,
You're
so
the pastor.
Church, my love of my life. My wife and I felt called to leave the church we were working in and come back to our hometown and start a church. And so we started a church in our living room with 5 people.
Oh, wow.
And we had our first service in an old pharmacy that we converted into a church building in 1999. We're celebrating our 25th year right now, and we're in our 4th location. It's a beautiful, and I know the property well. I came here for different events as I was growing up. Never thought we'd have the property. It's a beautiful 56-acre campus. It's at the base of a mountain.
Oh, wow.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And so we just, I don't know how much longer I'm going to do it, because at some point I need to bring a young stallion in to really reach out to capture the young folks. But I still feel like I'm at the top of my communication game, so I'm good with that. But we got a wonderful team. We've got a private school, a daycare, a food ministry that helps feed over 1,200 people a month. We've given away since 2012. We've given away over 2 million pounds of food. And plus we do events, we do concerts. I got a great team here. The only reason I was able to go away in 2016 to do a race, because I've got a great team around us who just a hardworking, super group of folks that just take care of business. And so we're thrilled. New Life Church, if you want to check it out, newlifechurchct.com. And it's really the passion. It's hard to love a bunch of stuff, but I love racing, yes, but God's really called me to this. This is really the calling of my life, and I couldn't be more thankful.
Pastor Will Marotti, want to thank you so much for taking some time to be on the show with us and just share some of the great stories from Indianapolis. And we hope that all of you will go follow newlifechurchct.com and MarottiAutosport.com as well to keep up with the racing side of things. And Will, as things develop for you, we look forward to having you back on the show again. And we wish you all the best for a blessed year, you and your family. And that is Will Marotti. We're going to step aside. Hot topics when we come back on the Tom Baker Show right after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV, and it is time for Hot Topics. And we're going to start where you would think we should, right? The Chicago Street Race 2. NASCAR goes to Chicago once again with a street race, 2 days of racing plus concerts, and Bubba Wallace had a big kind of meet and greet type event that he held for the fans there. And wouldn't you know, there was like this much chance of rain on Sunday, and it turned into this much. Again, doggone it, it delayed and then eventually ended early once again. But have to say, you would really have to think it would be a marginal success, if not a huge success. I haven't seen final attendance numbers, but I will say this, in terms of the racing, the Xfinity race I thought was the most exciting TV race of the weekend. Lots of different leaders and passing and great racing on a beautiful Saturday, dry track, and of course SVG once again getting the win. 3 road course wins in a row for SVG in the Xfinity Series this year. Incredible. Now on Sunday, he didn't fare quite as well. He ended up getting taken out. It was raining. The track was wet. Visibility was not great. The wipers really aren't. I don't think the wipers are what they need to be. Just looking out of the in-car cameras, it just doesn't look like these guys could see. But he ended up getting clipped by Chase Briscoe, who was out of control, and ended up getting taken out of the race. But have to credit Alex Bowman, man. He just, a great decision by his Blake Harris, his crew chief, to keep him out there. And of course, he was in on that as well. They agreed on it. Turned out to be the right strategy. But you got to hand it to Ty Gibbs, man. That young man, what a spirited race he drove both days, really. Just a great job by Ty Gibbs, and saw some quotes afterward about him saying he just had a blast and learned so much there over the weekend. But it was Bowman snapping an 80-race win streak. So there you have it. As far as the racing, we could spend the whole show talking about this, but we'll just say this. The average of 3.87 million viewers watched Sunday's race. That's up 35% over last year's average on NBC. And it was NBC's second most watched NASCAR race since 2021. Now, again, the attendance seemed like it was off a little bit, but no official numbers have yet been released. From what I could tell, the concert crowds were sparse, but that's not always necessarily an indicator of the people that were there watching the racing. So we'll wait and see on that. I would say you're going to see a 2025 race. It will be on the same weekend. There is talk that it may continue, but it may not continue after that on the same weekend. We'll just have to see. A lot of back and forth there, but just happy that they got everything in there. And 2 really actually good races. Sunday's just obviously literally dampened by the rain. Okay, let's get to some news here. Speaking of the Sunday race, after the race was over, now, earlier in the race on Sunday, Alex Bowman had overshot a corner. He went in too hot, and he got Bubba Wallace. And he ended up, there were 2 or 3 of them that spun and crashed there. Now, Bubba continued, and so did Bowman. After the race, Bubba decided to take out his displeasure on Bowman by slamming into him. It was a door slam, basically. And NASCAR got a little offended, and they fined him $50,000. Now, no point fines, just $50,000. A lot of fans wondering, wait a minute. The week before, Carson Hocevar spun out Harrison Burton under the caution. Didn't touch a wall, didn't hurt him, no big deal. $50K and 25 points. Bubba, $50K, no points. Why? I don't know. It's NASCAR. Consistent inconsistency is their motto, right? Okay, Noah Gragson signs a multi-year deal to drive for Front Row Motorsports in 2025. We talked about this last week. I've been saying I thought he was headed to Front Row. He, in fact, did sign a multi-year deal. Now, we don't know if it's the 34 or the new team that will be incoming for Front Row, the third team with the new charter that they're buying. But we don't know who his crew chief's going to be. We do know he's there for multi-years, and I think this is a great move for Noah. It's amazing to see Front Row's sort of elevation here over the last couple of seasons, and especially now that they're a Tier 1 team from Ford, they're getting a lot more factory support, and Ford played a key role in getting Gragson into that organization. Now, the question is, who gets the second seat? Whichever one Gragson doesn't fill. Well, lots of rumors about this. Harrison Burton is a name that's been floating around. Harrison, of course, leaving the 21 or being ousted in favor of Josh Berry for 2025. So Burton would like to land somewhere. That would be, to me, I would consider that an upgrade, believe it or not, to be able to go over there if he gets that seat. I think Riley Herbst still has to be a candidate, though some are saying he may be involved with the 2311 additional team that may come along for 2025, and that wouldn't surprise me either. Zane Smith being rumored. Now, how ironic's that? Zane left Front Row because they didn't really have an opportunity for him this year in Cup to go over to Trackhouse on a multi-year deal. Now, I'm finding this a little bit hard to believe that Trackhouse would just cut him loose. But when you look at his performance so far this year at Spire, there's 3 cars over there. The 7, the 71, and the 77. Zane's is the 71, and it's the one that's been in the back of those 3 cars in the finishing order in a lot of the races this year. He did, though, however, recently have the second place finish. So I guess we'll wait and see, but here's a name I just heard yesterday, and it came from inside the garage, and it blew my mind. Sam Mayer. Now, Sam's a guy that we haven't really talked about for moving up to Cup in 2025, but boy, what an opportunity for Sam this would be. Now, why would Sam leave Chevrolet and Junior Motorsports? Well, because if you look at Chevrolet right now, there doesn't seem to be a lot of upward trajectory that he could go to get to Cup within that Chevrolet organization. All of the teams are filled. Doesn't seem like they're adding cars. So Sam would basically need to make some sort of change. And boy, what a change this could be, right? To be with Front Row Motorsports, certainly a top 10, top 15 team with chances to win all over the place and seems to be getting better. I don't know what to say about this, except that I would be thrilled for Sam to get this kind of an opportunity to do something like that. So we'll just have to wait and see. I suspect it won't take too long for Front Row Motorsports to fill that other seat. Rodney Childers, been the crew chief for Kevin Harvick for so many years. He's not going with one of the drivers from Stewart Haas. He's in fact going to Spire Racing, the crew chief for Corey LaJoie in the number 7 car next year. I love this. This is a huge incoming asset, not just to the 7 team, but to Carson Hocevar and the incoming Michael McDowell, who's leaving Front Row to go drive the 71 car replacing Zane Smith. If Corey's ever going to take that next step to compete for wins in NASCAR Cup, it will be in 2025, and it will be with Rodney Childers' experience and his leadership ability. He will make their whole operation better. That was a huge grab for Spire. Let's go to IndyCar. IndyCar debuted their hybrid energy system at Mid-Ohio, and rousing success by every measure. I have not heard a single shred of negativity about the hybrid. It was fabulous, and the racing was great. It was one of the most exciting IndyCar races of the year. Pato O'Ward ended up basically outsmarting Alex Palou for the win, but you had 4 or 5 cars at any given time that were in contention for the lead. That was one of the most exciting races I've seen. Obviously, it's a one-race data sample, so we'll keep track, but boy, that one really was a surprisingly strong debut. I did not expect. There were virtually no problems with it that I've seen reported. So IndyCar did a nice job, and the team's kind of working on all that, and certainly did make the race interesting for sure. Now, also, IndyCar rumor. You better listen close to this, and I hope you're sitting. How about Valtteri Bottas coming to IndyCar in 2025? Maybe, kind of, sort of, if nothing good materializes in F1. The word from the paddock is there are several teams who are interested in talking to Valtteri Bottas, and why wouldn't you be? I mean, he's a worldwide fan favorite. He surely knows how to win, and Bottas in IndyCar would be a whole lot of fun to watch. It makes you think about drivers like Nigel Mansell, who have come over here in the past and jumped in an IndyCar and just totally blew the world away, right? So I would be excited to see what Bottas could do, but we'll have to wait and see. Still a candidate for some of the F1 cars, and there's still about 3-4 seats that haven't officially announced drivers in Formula One for 2025. And by the way, I'm just going to give a quick footnote on F1, and then I'll talk more in detail on the next show about it. But here's my quick footnote. Some of the most exciting, close, intense racing we've seen in F1 in years. Just a joy to see that Max Verstappen, nothing against Max. Max is my guy, but gosh, to see Max Verstappen have to really work for it and to see it not be so easy right now and to see some of these other teams stepping up and drivers getting wins, I love it. We'll talk more about F1 on the next show. And I want to close the show with an update on John Force, because as all of you I'm sure know by now, John had a crash about a month ago in Virginia, and he has been just kind of fighting to recover here. He has some serious injuries, a traumatic brain injury, and so it's been just sort of a slow, progressive or positive, I guess that's what I was trying to say, progressively positive recovery so far. They moved him out of the hospital he was in to a long-term neural care facility, and he continues to make progress. Doctors say he still has a long road ahead of him in his recovery. So our thoughts and prayers continue for John, his family, and his team as they race on in NHRA 24 action. And that's it for this week's Tom Baker Show. For more exclusive content and stories, join us at steeringwheelnation.com and our 24/7 streaming page right on the WatchPowerTubeTV.com website. Visit tracktune.live to check out how you can sign your Tracker Series up so the fans can hear all the PA action through their phone or device so they don't miss anything. And check out ultimateqm.com for all the info on how to get your young ones started in quarter midget racing. Remember, winners win with Ultimate QM. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Wheel Nation, Steering Wheel Nation on LinkedIn. Until next time, I'm Tom Baker. Thanks for watching.
Like this show? Want more? Then head to WatchPTTV.com, the new 100% free PowerTube TV streaming network. Home of the best classic and new motorsports racing and build shows on the web.